Hello, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Hi, good. So, hello, everybody. I hope you can hear us. Welcome to our tips and tricks session for SAP Business One. And today we have our consultant, Mike Taylor, who's going to be covering basic system initialization settings in SAP Business One. And if anybody has any questions, you've got the Q&A box at the bottom. I prefer that than the chat, to be honest. So Q&A. And it's all yours, Mike. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Tracy. Um, yeah, so today we are going to cover basic initializations. I am going to try to not just bore you by field going through every single thing, but I've tried to pick some useful things that I thought you would, like to see, and to help you understand where some of the settings are. The system initialization is usually done at the time of blueprinting. So some of those checkboxes and fields will lock, but a lot of them are still flexible. So, as a customer, you can go and you can check them out and maybe make some informed decisions. Also, be careful that some of the things you can change can have system-wide effects, and just be aware that if you toggle them, it could make changes to the whole company, and in certain situations, it can prevent you from actually doing stuff. So today I'm going to do just basically the company details. I'll do the the interesting points of the system initialization folder. That's mainly company details, general settings, document settings, and then I have some bonus topics that aren't in system initialization, but they kind of fall in the same kind of realm. And again, I'll try to highlight more useful stuff. So let's close this and we'll log in. So the first thing we're going to do is modules, and I'll just show you the folder. So this is the folder I'm talking mostly about, system initialization. I'm going to start with company details. So I kind of promised you not to cover all these. The company details, general settings, this is mostly just for printouts. This is not really that interesting. Accounting, also, it's mostly just for printouts and storing of your tax code information. It's not really a super amount of interesting fields there. But once you get to the basic initialization, this is one of the primary areas that you are going to set some of the highest level features and functions. So we're going to go through some of these. So currency, again, some of these are already locked when they are created. So, or as soon as you do any sort of transactions. So, obviously for a system, you won't be able to change your currencies. Default account currency is nice. It's all currencies. Only certain, in my professional opinion, only certain accounts should be specifically locked to a specific currency, but you could set that. Usually I'll leave, like, if you're going to make expenses and things, all currencies. Where we get to some of the more interesting stuff here is your multi-language support. So that's cool because it turns on the ability to do translations. So you can have more than one translation for a specific field. So in this case, there's already a foreign language tab, but you can actually do translations here. So you could pick other languages and use that for alternatives in your printouts. When you're setting up new items, this is something that you really want to pay attention to here, the item groups valuation method. And, all throughout this, as I was going through, it kind of, SAP puts a lot of things in a couple of different places throughout the system initialization sections. They could probably go and combine some of these. So it's kind of interesting actually, because there is a dedicated system initialization general settings like inventory section. So these different forms I'm showing you, sometimes you have to look through, is it in company details, basic initialization? Is it in document settings? Or is it in general settings? So I'll try to highlight that. So if you're looking for these high level things, or you're just browsing for options, you're going to look through one of those three forms, primarily the three that I'm mostly going to cover today. So this, items group valuation method, should this probably be with the inventory tab? Probably, but it's a good high level way to set this. If you set this to standard, for example, and you don't use standard costing, and then a new user comes along, maybe they're not so financially focused, and they make a new item master data, it will use standard. So this is a good place to set your basic costing method. So again, some companies is very easy. They use moving average, and that makes it really, really easy to set that at the highest level. You can obviously do templates and things at the item master data time, but that's the high level setting. This checkbox here, manage item cost per warehouse, is really critical too. This is something you can see the grayed out, it's locked, but this allows you to do your minimums and maximums at the row level. I think in almost every level, you're going to want to have this checked. If you only ever are going to have one single company level cost, one single company level minimum stock, you can leave that unchecked. But this goes to directly what you're going to see here in the inventory, where it has managed inventory by warehouse, and you could see it allows you to do minimums and maximums. This is very critical for multi-site businesses or somebody that has, they're across the country or whatnot, and they want to be able to have costing by specific warehouses. Allow stock release without item cost is also a slightly controversial one. This is something you can toggle. Generally, I'm not gonna, generally the only reason to have this on there is if your warehouse team is making some mistakes in returns. Typically where I see this is when you do a return, if you do a manual return and you don't set the return cost or a manual credit and you bring stock in and you leave it at zero, you'll have some stock that's at zero. It's better to fix those things, and it's better to address a cost for returning than to check this box. But if you don't care or your industry doesn't need it, you can allow stock release without item costs, and it will just allow 0 item cost there. Keep in mind, I'm on the newest V10 PL2402 at the time of this video. So some of these might not be available. If they're not available to you, it could be that you are not on a new enough version. So this is my demo system. I have the luxury of just upgrading it whenever I feel like. So keep
Yeah,
that in
and
mind
Mike,
too.
I also want to mention too, Mike, that you use Boyum, so you've got dashboards and stuff that somebody who doesn't have it just has their basic SAP.
Yes, almost every time people ask me about these dashboards in the back here. So yeah, this is just B1UPs. These are basically just default dashboards that they come with. So yeah, that's a good point too. So I kind of forget because I work mostly with B1UP stuff now. Okay, good points. Okay, so allow stock without release without item cost, manage serial and batch cost by. So this is really neat. And I think that in most industries, the serial batch valuation method is a smart method to use, where every serial gets its own cost, or every batch gets its own managed cost. I think that, a lot of industries really benefit from that costing. So you can basically say, manage serial and batch costing. Do you use the item group, or do you use the serial and batch valuation method, which, if you buy serial X for $500 and serial Y for 1,000, it literally stores and tracks that exact cost, and that exact cost can be managed. I think of something like car dealership examples, one people throw around a lot. Not that I've done a lot of car dealership stuff for SAP Business One, but if you buy, again, car A with a serial, you can have and manage different costs on it. So that is something that's really good. And if you didn't know about that, that's a totally separate topic. Default house bank account, that's pretty basic stuff. There is a bank statement, automatic bank statement processing system that you can enable here. So some of these ones down here, and as I kind of mentioned, some of these settings are more inventory stuff. That why are they here specifically? I'm not sure. But these ones are more kind of basic initialization stuff. Installing the bank statement processing, you could check this. I personally don't know how to do this. We can help you with this, but this is an automatic way that you can get your bank statements from the bank and upload them, kind of the reverse of the EFT files. You could take the CSV files from your bank, match them, match the columns, and then have it try to auto do your bank statement processing or bank statement reconciliation. Fixed assets, by default, this is not checked. I just enabled it. I was probably playing around with it in the system. If you don't have this enabled, it's another thing you can look into in a basic initialization. It has a full featured fixed assets. It's actually quite a large module. It's all built in, especially as a V10. I don't remember when they fully integrated it. It used to be separate. As long as you're above, I'm going to take a chance and say that it's a 9.3. It's been a while since I worked on anything less than 9.3. Enable multiple branches. I don't know enough about this. I've worked with companies with multiple branches. I know there's some drawbacks to using multiple branches. I'm not expert in that, but this is where you would set that at a very high level. Remember, please don't go and check these boxes and hit update without giving this some thought, because it's not something you could just uncheck. And something like the multiple branches, I know is going to cause issues if you just kind of willy-nilly check it. You could do it in a test, or make a new database to play around with it and do some research on it, but just be careful. The fixed asset stuff's probably not going to hurt you too much, but especially if you plan to end up using it. Advanced GL account determination, this is very handy. I would say that just in my demo system, I have not really needed it. I probably have it in my messier test system. But this is something that's really useful, the advanced GL account determination. I think most of the new implementations I'm doing, they all have advanced GL account determination. This kind of allows you to do some kind of conditional statements where you can say, if it's a particular item group and it's being shipped to the US, put it to this particular revenue account, and you can use different dimensions to customize your GL account determination. So that's really handy to have too. If you check it, it will migrate your current GL account determination to advanced GL account determination. So again, just be careful of that. It's not a very difficult migration, but it's something that is very useful if you need it and you want to do more detailed or more conditional GL account determinations and have that automate it for you. The enable project management, there is a full project management module, and it works pretty well. Again, it's something you can enable and try it. It actually does make a project management module here. So it has basically the big feature is the project master data. And as a V10, it's a lot better. You can kind of do billing from it. It extends the financial project code system, so you can do a lot more and manage a little bit of a Gantt chart system. Just to set expectations, it's not a super hyper detailed like Microsoft project or something, but it will handle certain situations that you can use it. Like say for example, you want to do revenue recognition. You might be able to simulate that, but like out of the box, it doesn't do like detailed revenue recognition stuff. But again, if opportunities is good for tracking like limited projects too, mostly on the sales side. But if you want something a little bit more detailed, throw that on in the test system and check it out. There are a lot of features already included. There's no extra licensing fees, etc. Okay, so that is the basic initialization. It's lots of neat stuff in there maybe you didn't know about. And the second one that's the most common is the administration system initialization general settings. So as I kind of mentioned, they have extended some of the inventory tabs here. Why is some of that stuff in the basic initialization? I'm not really sure, but again, looking between those things, it's just something you get used to. So you have the business partner. You also have your F1. Hopefully you have your help installed, so you can click your F1 and it will open up your context kind of help file. And this gives you a little overview of what I'm going through here. And you can always kind of search through it. You can see company details, basic initialization tab, all those things, general settings with the different tabs. And this basically just kind of gives you like a little blurb on each field or button or whatnot. So that's always very useful. So F1, the F1 key should bring that up. There is also an online one as well. So things that are kind of interesting in this are the credit limit and the commitment limit is something that people like to experiment with. So generally, it's something that you would run like this: credit limit and commitment limit. The credit limit is something that blocks you from doing invoices, but the commitment limit is something that's a little bit more misunderstood. The commitment limit is there to prevent you on your orders from actually taking orders when the customer is about to exceed their credit limit. So if somebody has already exceeded their credit limit and maybe they're, say $10,000, the commitment limit is preventing you as your business from taking those orders, and those orders will actually end up in certain situations doing demand calculations. So MRP, purchasing, and all those things. So the commitment limit just prevents you from overcommitting to people that you're not really sure about, that maybe they're getting close to their commitment limit and you don't, unless it's a great customer, you might want to just take a look at that, give them a quote, but say, look, you got to clear up your credit before we're going to let you do the commitment limit. So that's that. The set commission buy, I would say this is almost always too limited for the normal kind of situations. The way I see it, the conversations 99% of the time go like this. I say, hey, do you pay commissions? They say, yeah, it's simple. It's just a straight line calculation. And then the ifs and buts. Oh, but if it's Bob on a Tuesday, it's 12%. And if it's the customer spends $10,000 and it's, 16.25% and all that stuff. So this is, if you can literally stick to basically a straight line commission, this can track it. But I would say that I've never seen this be used. And usually we have to do something custom. We can definitely do a lot of custom things, track different fields and things, and make, as long as you can feasibly calculate your commission mathematically without a person actually looking at it and assigning things manually. If you could standardize that, we can handle that. Maybe not by this. The approval processes is something that's interesting too. I'm generally not a fan of this. I'm going to be honest. They are very rigid. So if you have kind of a more rigid situation, and especially for purchase orders or things like that, where somebody will enter purchases and you want, say, if they're over $10,000 or $5,500, you want somebody to look for them. But if you are in an organization where you care about speed and you kind of, let people have a longer leash, it's probably going to be too rigid. It's more set up for a corporate environment that's where you can kind of do the document, then a manager or somebody who's marked to approve it comes in, gets the message, and then, the next day they'll approve it. But it's not like where it goes and it sends, it calls that person and asks them for their permission. It's like, I would say most of the time, especially for smaller businesses, a soft form of approval is going to be better than using this. But people that use this and understand it, like it, and there are a lot more tools to make it flexible. So it's there. Default payment method for vendor is probably the most common one. This is something, if you're going to get into the payment wizard, if you have not looked into the payment wizard, it's nice because you can just run all of your payables, filter them, do check runs. So if you have a default payment method that you usually pay, and then you can go into those specific vendors and you can change it, but that's just the default one. The dunning terms for customers is really good. If you do any sort of dunning, not all industries and not all businesses are comfortable with this, but dunning is effectively an automated collection system. So you can say, if they're over 90 days, you're going to send them letter number 2, and you could do various wordings. You can charge fees for sending things. If you're in more of a high volume situation, you can do that, rather than a business partner situation. I find a lot of people are not as comfortable with this, especially if you have a good relationship with your customers. It's not something I would recommend you do, but it has a lot of features. And if you want to automate things, even just to track them and to generate the letters for you, you can omit different documents, you can omit different customers and stuff. So it's pretty flexible that way. So that dunning thing.
We have
Another
a
thing,
past webinar on that too, Mike. Just if anybody
yeah,
was looking into the dunning letters, if you go to the Forgestik YouTube page, And look in the research bar, Dunning letters, you could see a whole session just on that.
Yeah, so it's good if you want that. The use shipped goods accounts for customers. This is really a great feature I've found lately. And the shipped goods account for customer, basically what happens is when you do a delivery, it puts the COGS value into a holding account, an accrual account, usually an asset. And then when you process the invoice, it releases that accrual into the final cost of goods sold. So if you've ever, most people kind of finish their cash, they go delivery to account to invoice pretty quickly. But if you have a delay in your invoice from your delivery, the using shipped goods account's a very simple way. You basically check that box and well, set up the GL account for what your shipped goods account's going to be, and then check this box. And then only when you do the invoice will you have your matching principal. So for all the accounting type people, this is a really nice one, especially at the end of the year. The payment methods, this is really neat. And recently they've started to divide the changes with the payment terms. So payment terms, have the price list. It gets annoying if you just want to change the price or the payment terms and you don't want it to always change your prices. Now you can stop that with this checkbox. Same with setting the default price list. So now you can say, don't apply this and only apply the basics based on the first time you do the payment terms. But if you change it in the future, it won't try to change all those things in there. And you could set the default from a different spot. So you can just start them on a retail price and it kind of separates the payment terms. The budgets, this is really basic, but that's where you'd enable budget initialization. Services has a lot of things in here as well. So the big one here is the turning off. People have asked me for this before, and it never bothered me, but user by user, if the user logs in and you check the personal account here, if you click that little avatar, you can see under services, they can disable this license information at startup. There's a little box there. It drives some people crazy. But user by user, you can actually set these services as well. But to highlight some things in here, the screen locking time, if you don't want this to lock 99999 there, 9999 there, it will prevent that screen locking mechanism basically effectively. So some people like that. The default email method here is really nice, especially if you don't have any idea what Business One Mailer is. If you set it to Outlook email, it will allow you to do emailing from SAP where it will do the PDF and it will make it in a new Outlook mail message. If you don't have something cool like print and delivery and you just have SAP without B1 up, this is a nice option under services. Put it to Outlook email, and that will make it a lot easier if you don't run your own mailer. Enabling transaction notification, this is something in the background. You should keep it checked, but there is a live collaboration system within SAP that I don't think a lot of people experiment with. Is it super useful? Maybe it's a little redundant, but if you do want it, you can have it. So you have this little live collaboration, and it's like a little chat. Oops. It's like a little chat here. So this is a chat message, and this goes back and forth. And you can also send documents there as well. So you can go and actually add this into the particular document to make a link. So if you said, hey, take a look at this, boom, it's kind of nice. Does it beat, any of the other messaging things, Slack, Teams, etc.? Probably not. But it's kind of cool that you could send direct links for people to check out. So that's enable live collaboration. That's pretty no-brainer. Just make sure I'm getting all that. Email method. So for displays, you can change the amount of decimal places. Do not change the amounts for more than 2. That's a giant mistake. If you want to do calculations, you could change your prices up to 6, but never, ever, 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 under any circumstances, change your amounts. I would really not mess with this as a customer, but just so you know that you can change things up to 6 decimals. The number of rows in a list of window, this is really nice because if you search in, say you're searching for a business partner in a document, if it is going to show you more than 1,000, I know some people have like hundreds of thousands, and it can be very slow. This will just warn you like, hey, what you have done is going to show you, say you have 10,000. It will just prevent you from having to sit there. I know some customers where like they do e-commerce, and I mean, every single person in their e-commerce for some reason is making another business partner. So you can prevent that by using that. The business one suggest here is really neat because you can go, and I'll just use a sales order. So if I typed in Cobra here, this will suggest up to, I think, 10 or something. There's a setting to set it, and this will actually do it wildcard. Obviously, you can click this and do your star list of, and that will give you that. But the suggest is kind of nice because you could go tray, and you see that it will suggest, it'll just suggest the ones that are close to it, which is nice without having to go to the list of. So that's really great. And then this other one, this text text search, is something that's kind of underused too. If you're going to go and do the list of, so you can see it's warning me it's going to be over 1,000. If you sort by a particular column, you can search. So I can go star, food, star, and push text search, and it will give me a filter here. Because I've sorted by the name, you can do this search. All the time I'm doing this through B1UP to do a more detailed search. But if you show these various columns, you can sort by them and use this text search right out of the box to search. Font and background is not really that interesting. I am just looking at my notes here. So inventory, there's not too much in here. I guess the only one that I would really like to show is auto adding all warehouses to new existing groups. You can actually prevent all unit of measure group definitions, all warehouses, and all packages from being added to all new items. You could. It's a little bit more management, but if you only carry certain items in certain warehouses, or you only want to see certain items for certain warehouses, you can actually prevent that. It can be a mess of administration, but in certain situations, it's nice. By default, this is going to be selected, so all warehouses are available for all items. You can turn that off. And then display inactive items in reports and marketing documents. You can just turn those off and not even use them. Hiding functions is really nice too. If you never use any of these, like you're never going to use production, you're never going to use MRP, and you don't care, you're never going to use dunning, just disable them at a company level. Get rid of them. You don't need them. QR codes, you can always turn them back on. This doesn't permanently disable them, by the way. QR codes is really nice too. I did a video on this a little bit ago. If you do have something where you have a create QR code, this is all default out of the box stuff, and you can make these QR codes and dynamically generate them and include them in your Crystal Reports layouts for your documents. So, if you have something where you have a tracking number, you have an online quote system, maybe you did your quote in Salesforce and it syncs back into SAP, and then you just have that link there. You can visualize this, and by now most of the phones are integrated with the QR codes, so you can really easily get to things, and that's all just built into the system. A couple more here. You hang on. I know I'm getting close to the end, but these are good. System initialization, document settings, general. So a couple here is blocking negative inventory, and this is one that people maybe misunderstand. So at company level, that just means all of your warehouses need to add to above 0, but you can go negative in individual warehouses. The most typical one is the warehouse, because this will prevent each warehouse from going into negative. I really do not recommend using negative inventory. It is a mistake, I think. The other one that's really big here is your maximum number of days for cancellation. If you didn't know, most documents can be canceled. So if you had an invoice, you made a mistake. SAP is notoriously known for being inflexible, but they've made a lot of changes, and you would just be able to right-click your invoice, cancel it. That will reopen the base document, usually a delivery, And that's fully capable of recopying that delivery to a new invoice and making all those changes. You do not have to copy the invoice to a credit and then make a new invoice and then worry about the inventory and all that stuff. You can literally right click, cancel. It will make you add a cancellation invoice, but that will just record the date that you canceled it, and then you'll be good to go. So that's another really good one there. For the documents, I had to highlight a couple things in here. You can prevent duplicate vendor reference numbers. This can also be AP invoices, say, for example. So you can say only in the fiscal year, without warning, with warning, or block it, and then control it to the vendor. So you can actually prevent that. This doesn't block people from doing duplicates. But this is nice that you as a customer can just do this. We used to have to do all this by custom coding. The other thing that's really nice to highlight in here is you can now allow updates to user-defined fields when the documents are not editable. So prior to this with a UDF, maybe it was a UDF that didn't even have any sort of bearing on financial stuff, but it's locked. So you see extended description, I can't click in it, I can't edit it. A lot of UDF situations, maybe you're using it for commission, maybe you just want to record something in there that, SAP has locked up all of that stuff. So if I add that and I push update, just takes a second here. You can go back to that invoice or any invoice. I just had this particular one. And now you can edit it and then update it. So it's really cool. Again, before I used to use the SQL update system, which, you're allowed to update your own UDFs if they're just dead ends, but won't cause a problem. So a couple more little situations or little tips. We have general, system initialization, tooltip preview. This is really neat because you can enable the tooltip preview, customize what's shown. Go back to this. And if you hold your mouse over the golden arrow, you can see the information without even drilling down into it. So that's really cool. And then I have it enabled on items too. And you can customize that with this tooltip preview. Allows you to add a lot of different stuff in there. Reference field links. Have you ever wondered where your, sorry, I'm probably going too fast. Have you ever wondered where those journal entry fields are being filled from? Have you ever wanted to change them or add your own links? This I kind of consider as basic initialization stuff too. You can double click on the side and actually customize what goes into your header references, into the remarks. And this is really neat. You can use UDFs and everything. So this will allow you to store different things from project numbers to other various things. Accountants generally love that. Another bonus, this one, and then just one more. Message preferences, set up general message preferences. So each user, I don't know if you've ever seen a prompt that had a remember my decision checkbox. If you ever do that and you remembered a decision, but that decision user by user was a mistake, you can go through and remove that. It doesn't make much sense. Message preferences, I mean, it will once you use it a little bit, but set up general message preferences, and then you can actually remove that. So if you said yes, and then every time you do something, it does it, but you want it to keep prompting you, or you have a user where they say, I changed this and it never updates. You can see on the bottom, it would say in the status bar, it says previous user selected yes, and it'll warn you of that. If you see that, you can go in here and actually remove it. And my final little tip for being a basic administration, system initialization wizard here is utilities, sorry, administration, utilities, and connected clients. You can go in here and other than you can't kick yourself off, but if you have other users and again, of course, this is my demo system. You can select those other users if somebody's stuck or they're logged in or they left and you don't have access to their machine and you just want to kick them out to get their licenses back or whatever. You can go into connected clients. You can select the row. You could send them a message like, hey, a warning, we're going to kick everybody off. Or you could just disconnect them right from there. So that's utilities connected clients. And that's really useful for, again, those high level administrators that want to make any changes. So I covered all system initializations. I hope I highlighted a whole bunch of different things. I didn't explain anything in great detail, but it might give you some, ideas of where things are set, things you could change, or places to look into if you want to improve your system. Does anybody have any questions? I can answer anything regarding these or whatever's in the chat now, but that's it for my presentation.
Yeah, you can use the Q&A box. And again, another point that I really liked what you made, Mike, is just the F1 key. Whatever you're in and you press F1, it's going to tell you what you're looking at and what it's for, and it's pretty practical. So does anybody have any questions? Doesn't seem. I think we're good. Well, if anybody has any information, any questions, or if I can help you, just email me, tracy@forgestik.com. And thank you very much, Mike. Very interesting. And have a great weekend, everybody.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.